Okay, this is Fred Caney from Valley Bigfoot, and this evening we have a young man from North Carolina, from Tennessee, Scott Carpenter, and the subject this evening is going to be on the use of camcorders behind using put them on your shoulder, use behind. Okay, so Scott,
Yeah.
fill the audience in on your um, experiences with the. Tell us more about yourself.
Okay. Well, I've been doing Bigfoot research since about 2009, and I call myself an amateur Bigfoot researcher because that's what it is. I don't do it full time, and it's definitely I'd say it's more like a hobby than I'm not one of these that hit the woods every spare minute I have. I still hunt and fish and do all those other things. But back in 2009, I had a couple of experiences on a well, while I was fishing, that kind of clued me in. There might be some Bigfoot in this one area, and so I grabbed a camera and took off in there, and that kind of got me started down this road. I guess you call Bigfoot research. But that was in that'd been in August of 2009.
That sounds good. But okay, let's start the ball rolling here. What made you decide to start using the camcorder on your shoulder, looking behind you?
Well, in one of the first areas that I went to, uh, at first when I started, of course, I was filming what I was doing, and I was just holding the camcorder. And I happened to be, I'd established a feeding station, or they'd set one up. I'd found what looked like what I'd call a day shelter. And then
Yeah.
I started leaving food there, and then they started leaving me gifts, and I'd bring food, and they'd leave me a feather or rocks and that sort of thing. And one day I just happened to be bent over, and I had the camera I was bent over and had the camera tucked up under my chest, pointing to my left. And I did my thing, and when I got back home and I was reviewing my video, I noticed when I pointed the camera to my left in the direction I wasn't looking, this one popped its head out for about 6 or 7 frames. It was only just a few frames, and then popped its head back. And as I turned, it went back in. And so that kind of gave me the idea. Hang on a second. This was to the side. I wasn't looking that way. It was just kind of like it just popped out and then popped back in. Just gave me a look. And that's where I kind of got the idea that maybe they're more concerned about where I'm looking than where the camera's facing. Because it's bad enough to try to get them on camera. So I came up with the idea. I got me a little harness and everything, and I started putting the camera on my shoulder, filming behind me, just out of curiosity at first. And then as things developed, it kind of just developed into the fact that that's where they were. They literally are hide and pickers, so to speak, and they just can't resist after you walk by to stick their heads out, take a look see.
I noticed on one of your videos, when you was walking up the trail, it was kind of like a S turn in
Mm-hmm.
the trail, and there, you showed it, and it looked like a bush in that spot.
Mm-hmm.
When you got around that turn, it stood up and walked across the road.
Yeah, or crawled across the road. Yeah.
Yeah, now it was, a lot of people tell me, they turn invisible, they cloak and all that stuff. My theory is, how you going to cloak an 800-pound chunk of wild animal,
Yeah.
except for nature?
Well, I've got some weird things on video from behind me, especially about that cloaking. I've got one video where something invisible is behind me. I don't know what it is, but it does move. It does move some foliage out of the way, and you can kind of see an outline of it. So, with the Bigfoot, I don't put anything out of. I keep my mind open. I know there's a lot of people that want to say, well, they're totally, they're just an animal. It's real smart, and then it goes all the way over to the human hybrid or even supernatural. And of course, I was involved in the kitchen DNA study, uh, quite involved. So I personally think, based on the evidence, they're a human hybrid of some sort. But you know, and as far as their abilities, like I said, I've seen them do some really crazy things, and so have other people. So
Yeah.
you know, and most of your big hitters know it too. They just don't want people to think they're crazy, so they don't ever say anything about it. But the Meldrums and Bobo and Cliff and all those guys, you know, they've either experienced or they know some of the crazy, you know, there's some of the crazy things that happen. But, you know, the old thing, you got to keep your credibility. So you know, they try to keep everything straight down the middle of the road.
Yeah, because I have a lot of people in my area tell me I'm about nutty as a fruit cake. But as time goes on, they start to realize that, wait a minute, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And um, I get like with me, I live right off the Blue Ridge Parkway. I can go 1 mile from my house, and by the crow flies, can be 5 minutes flight to the top of the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Appalachian Trail. So I live in a big saddle called the Shenandoah Valley.
Mm-hmm.
You ever been through here before?
I've been on the Shenandoah Parkway one time. It's been a long time ago. I don't live too far. Actually, by crow flies, I'm not that far away from you over here. I'm in Willowtown and Maryville, and so I can hit the Parkway up here and go up the top, go up over in North Carolina, and hit the Parkway right up there. Of course, the Appalachian Trail runs right through the middle of the Smokies, so
Right, because I got
so
that.
it's kind of this.
Yeah, because I got
I'm about.
the Appalachian Trail.
Go ahead.
The Appalachian Trail is 5 miles about 5 miles from the Parkway if I go through the mountains and everything. But you know,
Yeah.
basically, it's in your area. I noticed that you most of the videos I've seen that you was around this lake
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Is that your main research area, or is that just one of the spots?
That's just one of the spots. I have two areas. One is on this lake. It's on Tellico Lake, and there's a small 1,500 acre recreation area. But it's not very far from the mountains. It's pretty much if you know they can go around the river and be in the mountains, you know, 2 or 3 miles. And of course, you know, they don't have to follow the roadway, so that, you know, it's a pretty quick hop and jump. So it's not very far from the Smoky Mountains. And then the other location is in the Smokies. It's, you know, it's a main trail. It's not, you know, when I started looking at the Smokies, I started you know, I'm with David Paulides, you know, and North American Bigfoot Search, but I read his books, and he started, you know, he said, you know, if you've got a trail, a horse trail, and basically he did the stats, and it's horses, women, children, and, you know, if a bear can live there, so can a Bigfoot. And pretty much first time I went to this trail, it had all those ingredients. It was a pretty nice little trail that even the children went on a lot. People on horseback rode on it, and so I started finding activity at, you know, almost day one. You know, them watching this trail, because, you know, they just sit in the laurel thickets above the trail and around the trail and just watch people as they go by.
Yeah, I seen that one video where you showed where that squatch laid right down next to that log, right along the side of the trail.
Mm-hmm.
You walked up there, and if you'd have laid down there, the squatch could see both ways, but you couldn't see him from the trail. He was what, 8 or 10 feet off the trail?
Yeah, just right off the trail. Yeah.
So basically, they get brave.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, most people aren't looking for them. Nobody, you know, 99.9% of the people don't even know they exist, or now that they know they exist, they still wouldn't expect them to be that close to the trail. And if you've got gray skin and covered in black or brown hair, or gray skin and gray hair, all you got to do is squat down. People walk right by you and never see you.
Yeah, I noticed that one area it's real thick. What was that, laurel brush?
Yeah.
Mountain oil. We got the same thing here. Um, what? See if I can try to word this right. This is about the second time I've done a podcast. I'm a little kind of shaky right now.
Oh,
Um,
you're
okay. What made you decide to get into Bigfoot to begin with?
Well, it was that experience that I had when I was a boy. I guess 9 or 10. I had a weird experience with a couple of them jumped. They came up on the back porch and looked in the window at me, and that made me aware. I didn't really realize they were Bigfoot then. Tell you the story real quickly. It was back. I lived in a rural part of Knox County, which is it's about 60 miles away from the mountains. And it was about 11 o'clock. It was in the summer. I remember Johnny Carson was actually 11:30. Johnny Carson was coming on, and I was on the couch, and we had a long living room or den. And Mom was going to go take the trash out. She said, "Just lay here, and I'll go take the trash out." Well, she turns off on the back porch light. It's a screen door with a glass door. She goes off the porch and off into we had those old 50-gallon drums, what we used for trash back then. It was down at the back of the property. And while she's gone, these two little things run up on the back porch that look like orangutans, I guess is the best way to describe them, but they had human-like features on their faces. They had regular noses, but their hair was all shoveled. One was about 4 foot, maybe the other 4.5 foot, and they just laid their hands on the glass and they pressed their noses up against the glass and were just looking at it. And that just scared the living daylights out of me. And then, after a few seconds, they looked at each other, looked back at me, and one of them smiled at me, and I smiled back, and I kind of calmed down. About that time, Mom dropped the lid on the trash can. It made this noise, and when it did, they both jerked their heads around and just literally just turned and went off the back porch. And I don't know, that gave me nightmares for years I guess it was into my late teens, early 20s. And then you remember that show In Search Of?
Yeah, with Leonard Nimoy.
I was watching that show, and they showed, they did a Bigfoot show, and they showed the Bigfoot, and then they showed what, like what infant might look like, and it just clicked. And after that, I stopped having the nightmares because I had figured out what they were. So, tell that story to fast forward to 2009. I'm not really that interested in Bigfoot. During my lunch hour where I work, I had watched a couple of YouTube videos where some guys were doing their research. I kind of thought it was a joke and they were funny because they would go out and whack trees and do the whooping. And so I'm out bass fishing on Tellico Lake, and I'm off this area, and I'm on a point casting topwater. And I just kind of sheepishly thought, oh, what the heck? So I just did 2 or 3 just really stupid sounding whoops. Whoop, whoop, just stupid. And I looked around and I hope nobody heard that. And I go back to fishing. I'd say about a minute after doing the whoops, something comes down the point. And it's just crashing. It's just tearing stuff up. And at first I thought, someone riding a horse down here? Because it's a thicket. It's full of briars. It's in the summertime. It's blackberry briars. It's extremely thick. And then as it gets closer, I can tell it's bipedal. It's not a horse. And at this point, I'm just in shock. I'm just sitting there off the point, kind of like, this just ain't happening. And then whatever it was came down right to the edge, but wouldn't come out. Where I could see it was back in the shadows. And you could hear it walking up and down the point, and it was throwing brush. I could see the brush moving, and I could hear stuff being tore up, but I couldn't see. I could see movement, but I couldn't see it. And at that point, I'm looking down. I'm hitting that trolling motor, and I'm backing out just as fast as I can back out because I'm thinking, this thing jumps in the water. I don't have a gun with me. What the heck am I doing? So I'm backing off as fast as I can back off. And I don't know, this probably lasted maybe a couple of minutes. And then finally, I heard it, or whatever it was, I think it was a Bigfoot, but I heard it go it just kind of it stopped. And I got on the trolling motor, and you could hear when it stopped thrashing, you could hear it. I think it heard me, and then it gave a couple of humps, like it went, huh, huh. And then after that, it was like he slowly walked back up into the woods. And it was all bipedal. It wasn't tearing anything up. Just, and that's how I got into it. That just freaked me out. And I thought, oh my God, you know. And it was that a Bigfoot? I don't know. Well, the next weekend, I go to the area with my camera, and that's that's how it all got started.
Cool. Have you ever, when they come around, do you get any particular smells, like a real bad urine smell, or as in my case, juvenile, they smell like vanilla? You get any smells like that when they're coming around, or when
Yeah,
they're moving in the right direction?
yeah, the smells that I've smelled from them is the strong urine smell. You know, that day shelter where I told you where I started doing a feeding station.
Yeah.
It smelled horrible when I got there. The urine smell. Now when they come around, of course one of the smells I smell is that old wet dog sprayed by a skunk smell. And then there's another smell that they've given off that's almost like a putrid, rotting flesh smell. It's awful. And I know what a bear smells like, and bear's got its own sort of nasty little smell, but it's, that putrid smell, you can turn, I don't really, it's hard to describe it because you know, I've never been around dead, rotting bodies. I mean, I've been around like a bloated deer or something like that, but it's even worse than that. But those are the smells that they put off around me.
Okay, yeah, because in my area, when very first time I videoed the family group, when I walked in, the stench, well, it was so strong, ammonia was so strong it burned my eyes, my nose, my throat. And then that's when I seen them. But after that, in my other area, when I go in, I always know when the juvies are around because they smell like vanilla. When
Yeah.
I first come across that, I thought I was in someone's kitchen. It's how
Yeah.
they smell. And every time I go now every time I go hunting or something, the wind shifts and I get that smell, they're around me. They're following me and everything. So, but the smell is one thing I wanted to know about anybody else. Now, you did one video. You had your dog with you, and you got a photograph, or not, but on the video, it looked like a human face,
Yeah.
but it looked like a hybrid that was like deformed, something like that, face or something.
Yeah.
But you kept telling your dog to settle down. She was getting all hyper.
Yeah.
She wanted to leave and everything.
Yeah. She was freaked out. When I saw that when that was at dusk. Let me do a screen share. I've got a picture of that thing.
Yeah, it took you about like 2 to 3 minutes to catch it just right.
Yeah, I had to zoom in and out. It was a nasty one. It's this guy right here.
Yeah, that's him.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. I actually saw him we were walking. It was a walking trail near a camp on the campground, and I saw him running between the trees. And when we got down there, I was trying to find him, basically. And there's another close up of him. See his ear right there, and he's just
How,
looks like
how
he's
do
got
you
this.
how do you take a half a face and then add the other half to it? How do you do that?
Oh, I just use paint.net. And you just split that right there and flip it over. Because
Oh,
you figure, you know, they're not perfectly symmetrical, but they
yeah, it gives
that's
you a
what
good
they all
idea.
look like. Right there's another one.
Yeah.
I got several of them. It takes
Yeah.
seconds to load for you, but yeah,
Now, now, are you using just a plain old camcorder like you go to Walmart and get, or what particular kind you use for
they're
camcorder?
Sony handy cams.
A Sony
Sony,
cam.
a Sony handy cam.
Oh, all right. Yeah, 'cause see, I mean, I get a lot of stuff too, but I just don't know how to get that tight into Zoom like you do.
Yeah. Well,
Everything.
most yeah, I just
Like,
do.
like, like, when,
Go ahead.
not go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I don't use anything real expensive. I mean, I've got an older version of Adobe Photoshop, and then my main program I use for is called Paint.net. It's a free program. You can download it, and it's the easiest to use. It has a bunch of tools with it, and I just, but most of everything I do I adjust the contrast, sharpen it, that sort of thing. I don't do any big things. If I do a composite sketch, of course, I tell people I'm doing a sketch, based on I'll use Photoshop to do a sketch, try to take as much of the picture as I can and try to, because most of the time, I don't know about yours, but mine, they seem to follow a set of rules. One of the rules is they don't ever let their face be completely photographed. And they're either peeking with one eye, or they've got a limb in front of their face, or a leaf in front of their face, or
Yeah, and I got one juvenile. Uh, let me see if I can. Well, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it on here. But last year, I went into this area and I was looking for more or less deer kills. And I had my camera. I went around to the right, and I had the camera heard noise to the left, so I turned my head. I had two squatches raised up out of the lower brush. When I turned my head back, he dropped. Well, I didn't know that they were there, but when you look at the video or the photographs I took of it, the one on the bottom has got a face full of hair, but the juvenile on top looked like a skeleton. But you can tell the brow line and everything.
yeah.
And I got another photograph of another juvenile peeping around a tree, but you can see the cone on top of his head real good. So I'm guessing there's like two types, one with hair and one without hair.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of different types. There's like people, and so genetically they got all kinds of different looks. You got ones that got round heads, some more cone-shaped heads, some got elongated heads. Most of them always have the heavy brow with the eyes sunk back in, but not always. Some, mostly they have a wide, flat nose, wide mouth, gray skin, black skin, but at least those are the ones here. The hair colors of the ones here have black, brown, gray. I mean, I've got one that's gray. I mean, his hair's gray and his face color's gray, and whenever you get a picture of him, I mean, he's just a different shade of gray than everything else is. This guy here.
What's the closest you ever come to one? Or have one come out in front of you or whatever?
The closest, I mean, I've walked right by him. And can you see
What got me into it was I had one walk out 5 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
Stand there and look at
me. I had an experience with one race. I'm not having one step out completely, totally, like just.
That's what this one did.
Himself to me. I'm looking for this one here. I'll find it. And this guy here.
Yeah. See, I was going squirrel hunting one day, and I was over in this place called Highland County.
Yeah.
And I turned my back to the top of the mountain, to the ridge, and sitting there looking at the cabin where me and my dad lived at. I turned back around, and he was standing right there looking at me. But it looked like a human, but he didn't have no hair on his face.
Yeah.
His face was kind of a brownish gray. He was about 9.5, 10 foot tall.
Yeah. I was going to show you that guy's here. This gray one here, you can see him pretty good right there. This one was behind me, and I was sitting there flapping my jaws filming a segment, and he just raised up behind me. Now you can see the brow there, and his left eye, his nostril, and his right shoulder blow up over here.
Playing head games.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this one is he actually, when he first raised up, here's a still of that. He was facing to the right, and he slowly turned his head towards me, and then went down. But you know, one of the things I've discovered, and I've made videos of it before uh, on on these video cameras. I don't know if you're aware, but a digital camera has an logarithm, and it does an average. In other words, if you're filming something with it, let's say you're filming this bush and it's got multiple colors, it will average that out and use an electronic logarithm to record the colors. And I've even done it before. I've actually gone off, you know, and this is a high-def camera. I've walked off and sat down in the middle of a bush and had my wife film me or my son film me, and my face will turn green. Well, my face isn't green, but because the logarithm of the camera sees 98% of everything around me green, then it goes ahead and turns green. I've even had blaze orange on and sit down and it changed blaze orange. You know, it'll mess that color up. And so that's what makes it really difficult when these things are in really thick foliage. Sometimes they're not really that color. Lots of times I'll take a picture of one and it'll be green, and it's not really green, but it's the camera, and there's no way around it. I mean, I can literally turn myself into a blob squatch pretty quick once I get about 30 feet off into the woods, and this is with a high def camera, and you know, I don't know how you fix that unless you go back. Everybody goes back to using the old film, because you know these cameras have these logarithms in them that I don't think you can really mess with them. So it makes it difficult, you know. It's just like a deer. I don't know if you've ever tried to take a picture of a deer when it's standing in the woods. Most of the time they don't come out. It's very difficult to see them. And it's the same thing with the Bigfoot. It's just, you know, a lot of people don't realize, you know, these things are hiding from us. They're not, you know, very seldom does one just step out in the open with you with a camera in your hand. In fact, I can only think of it happening one time, and that's the Patterson-Gimlin film. The rest of the time, they're going to be hiding, peeking. Their whole deal is, you know, they're checking you out. They're going to be hiding, peeking. They're not going to. One of their rules is, you know, they're not going to be seen full body. The only time I ever know of anybody seeing one full body is usually women, and they don't have cameras. And they'll step. You know, I've had taken reports from women, and they'll step out 10 feet away in the middle of the trail and kind of say, "Here I am." But you know, that's usually if it's a man, full-grown man, they will not do that.
I don't know why this one stepped out, because he stepped out. He stepped out when my back was turned, and when I turned around, he was 5 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
And all I could do was just stand there, and we both had looks on him. He looked at me like, "Yeah, it's a human, big deal." He just turned and walked off. I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, well, that's rare for them to do it in front of a man, you know. Now the one time I did have one, I was going bow hunting actually, and I had a tree stand on my back, and I was walking down the trail, and I was running late. It just turned daylight, and I had one. I didn't have my camera going. I was just trying to go deer hunting. It was bow season, and I just got that feeling I was being watched, and I turned around, and as I turned around, the grass was probably about chest high. There's this little black dome head started raising up, and it's one I call Scout, because he's the one that decided to follow me. And he raised up, and maybe the top of his mouth I could see. He was looking right at me. We were eye to eye. I could see his head. He had black skin. You know, he had the protruding brow. It almost looked like he cut his hair. I wouldn't call them bangs, but you know, the hair. You know, he had his hair where it wasn't in his face. He just came straight along, went down like that. And of course I couldn't see the lower part of his face, but he didn't have any hair on his cheek. And we're just looking at each other. And and when I finally get a hold of myself, the minute I start to open my mouth to speak, I was just going to say, "Hey." He turns, and I've never seen anything move so fast. It just went, he shot across the trail, looked like a sprinter. I mean, I saw him full body, but for just a blink, just a black blur. He jumped across the trail and up into the woods and was gone. And, you know, he was probably about 6 foot 6.5, maybe 6'2", 6'3", about my size. I look like about 200 pounds, you know, juvenile.
Yeah.
That's
Do they migrate in your area, or do you have families that just stay there?
I have families I think that just stay here. They move in and out. They've got about, I'd say they've got about 100-mile square area. They kind of seem to hang out in or circulate in, and they just, you know, during the winter they get real scarce because there's no foliage down. But I still find some sign during the winter. But you know, they're most active here starting in about March, April, and go all the way through maybe. When the guns start popping in November, they usually disappear. You know, about the time deer season starts,
Yeah.
they get pretty scarce. Unless, you know, up in the mountains, it's not. You know, they're not as. You might find some more sign during the winter, but you know, off the park where they're not as protected, they pretty much go. You know, I don't. I think they're still around. They just get real scarce and they even go nocturnal. Because I've found footprints in December and January before, but you know what I'm saying, I don't get a whole lot of activity. Just
Right.
not a lot of hide and peek going on.
Yeah. Now, around here, from end of June into July and all through August and into September, he's got great. You know, they're starting to throw rocks at you. They're getting closer. They they follow me all the time. You know, different stuff like that. But it's pretty wild. Right now, the other thing I want to ask you about this dog man that you've been running into. Now,
Yeah.
when was the first time before you started videoing this guy that you saw him or saw bits and pieces of him?
Well, I actually saw the first dog man on the video, and to set the video up, it was early spring, in March, and I had the back trail camera on, and I walked out. This trail walks out, and there was an island that I've got some footage the previous year from one on this little island, and so I gone to where the trail ends, and I was really concentrating on that island. I actually had the camera on a monopod, and then I had the back trail camera, and I was zooming in, and checking that island out. And as I was watching that island, unbeknownst to me, this dogman-like creature is literally just right behind me. In the video, you can see he's got his head back, and he lowers his head, kind of pushes it forward, and just sits there. Of course, I'm in the process of kind of turning around, so he starts doing his juking stuff, whether he's going to move or not. And then when I finally go ahead and turn my shoulders, of course, he goes down. Only just a few seconds, but I didn't realize I got that video until I got home and was reviewing my back trail. And boy, that was a shocker. I mean, that scared the living daylights out of me. Because this thing was 4 or 5 feet behind me. I mean, at the most.
Yeah.
That was,
First time I ever seen one on your videos. You was walking down a trail, and you walked by this tree. It had a lot of honeysuckle brush on it. When you got by it, he had his whole face sticking out of the brush, looking at you.
Yeah.
Probably about 5.5 feet off the ground.
yeah. I had,
Yeah.
I had several like that. Now, the experience I had where I actually saw one, David had talked me into going back once I saw the video. We were right in the middle of the DNA study.
All right.
And they really didn't want to get into dogman because they were already having trouble with people losing their minds over it.
Yeah.
But he wanted me to see if I could get some hair samples. And like a dummy, I was stupid enough to go back into that area, and so I was putting up tape traps and putting out old hot dogs and stuff like that to try to. I didn't know what to bait them with, but I thought, let's try that. And after I got through, I even had a jar of bacon, where I put the bacon in the jar and poked a hole in the top of the jar and put it in a tree, trying anything I could.
Yeah.
And then as I was making my way out, I just had a weird feeling that I was being watched. And I look over to the right. About the time I looked over, this dog man, I guess the thing, jumped up on the side of a tree. And he basically jumped up. The foliage was almost head high. I mean, it was real thick in there. It was probably about neck high. And so I guess he wasn't tall enough to see me. So he jumps up on this tree, crawls in this tree, and he leans back out and looks over his right shoulder at me. And of course, I'm taking the camera. I've got footage of it, but I'm zooming in, zooming out because it's a really thick footage, and I'm trying to get a picture of him. And I am, I was just in the moment trying to get some footage, and then I realized what I'm looking at and how close he is. And so at that point, I've got a 40, and I get it out, hold my monopod between my legs, and I go ahead and chamber around pretty loudly. And when I pull it and engage it, and it pops back down, makes makes the noise.
Yeah.
That dog man, he was kind of just generally looking in my area, but when I did that, both his ears go boom, just like a dog's ears, and he looks right at me. He looked right at me, and I'm going to tell you, that was the coldest. I don't know how to describe it because when you look at an animal or another person, there's life, there's a soul, there's something there. When this thing was looking at me, I didn't see anything. I didn't feel anything. It was the coldest. It was like he was staring right through me. And, at this point, I'm starting to say, crap. I'm starting to run scenarios through my head. Okay, if he jumps off and he's on all fours, just, let out a breath and just unload center mass. He runs at you, same difference. Unload, where's my knife at? I'm thinking all these scenarios. And I guess for just a few seconds, I was wondering, is he coming off that tree? Is this going to get ugly? And then, it appeared he wasn't going to do anything. So at this point, I'm like, I got enough footage, if I got any at all, because I didn't know whether I'd get anything worth a crap or not. And so with the pistol at my side, I just started backing out real slow. And he let me back out. He just watched me walk off. And then I got as far away as I could. And at the time, my wife at the time had dropped me off and left, and I couldn't get a hold of her to come get me. And so I called David Pilates, and I told David, he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm in California. And I said, I've just seen a dog man, and if this phone gets cut off, or if I don't show up, this is where I'm at. This is what's happened. I've been attacked. He stayed on the phone with me, and I walked out to the road, and I met her. I was on the road out with the gun still drawn, and when she come up to the Jeep, I just jumped in and I said, go. She said, what do you mean? I said, go and don't stop. So she took off, and when we got to the main road, she looks down, and I still got that pistol between my legs. She says, is that thing loaded? And I said, yeah, it's loaded. She said, I think we're all right now. So I took the clip out and disengaged it, but that was pretty scary. That was, I knew after that I didn't want any more to do with them.
Yeah.
I pretty much, whatever experiences I have or captures I get with them now, it's all accidental. It's all doing Bigfoot stuff. It's not like I go looking for them.
Oh, okay. All right. We got a guy on here from Canada. I think he's from Vancouver Island. His name is Carl. Do you have any questions? Huh?
Hey, your dog man. How much did he weigh, do you think? Their weight?
How much the dog man weighed? The one I saw that jumped up on the tree, I'd guess he weighed maybe 150, 175 pounds.
How tall?
Well, he probably was about 6 foot because he had to jump up on the tree to see over the foliage. And I'm 6'3", and the foliage was like, right in here on me.
Cool.
But yeah, he was a nasty one.
And there's no odor to them?
No, I didn't know odor whatsoever.
Nothing. Okay.
Okay, that day that you had that one behind you, I noticed that you was videoing 2 squatches on that little spot on the other side of the summit, little teeny island there. I noticed you had one on the ground and one up in the tree. But the one up in the tree, you can see his foot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I saw that, but I just couldn't do anything in the video with it. So I just, you know, a lot of people, if you don't just, if you know what I'm saying, 99% of the people that watch these videos don't ever get out of their couch or their mom's basement. And they've never
Yeah.
been in the woods, and they've never hunted, and they've never looked for a deer where you're looking for an ear, an eye, nose, tail flip. You know what I'm saying? You look for parts of deer, you don't look for a whole deer.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I saw the foot and everything, but I thought to myself, there's just not, I mean, I could sit there and point it out all day long, and most people are just aren't, you know what I'm saying, just aren't going to see it.
Well, I mean, it was like a sore thumb because I know she was talking about he was holding on to the limb,
Mm-hmm.
but he had his thing with his left foot stuck right out in the open.
Yeah.
I could see his the white pad on his feet. I could see the hair going around him. But I like the one on the ground where he was showing you his teeth.
Yeah. I was
That
going
was
to, I was going to pull that dog man up for you so you can
oh,
see.
okay. Yeah, I got all the videos and pictures you got of the dog man. I copied them.
Good.
Got 'em.
If anything ever happens, you'll have them. I was just trying to find. I've got so many of them. I got.
Yeah, Shell Dion's the only one I talked to about this stuff.
Like, it's hard to see here, but that's his flat. His nostrils right there. This one's got a flat end on his nose,
Right.
and that's his forehead, and that's a little creature on his shoulder.
Yeah, that's the one that's 4 foot behind you.
Yeah, that one's right behind me.
Yeah. That little entity. Tell me if I'm colorblind, but was that entity had a blue top on his head?
He's either got a blue or a silver top. I've got a better photo of him. I'll pull him up here.
Because I kept that video you had, the one the hour long one.
Mm-hmm.
I kept that one. I like going back to that and watch that because I study it. That's fine.
Trying to find that little one. He's in there somewhere. I got some images.
How's your DNA coming along while you're looking for it?
Well, DNA study's done, and you know, pretty much the conclusion was already, you know, we came to the areas right there. There's the little dude.
Yeah, that's it.
He's got it looks silver to me or blue. He's got a normal sized nose. There's one eye and the other eye, and his little mouth. And during that video, you can watch his mouth. He's moving that mouth.
Yeah, how did you get it to where he showed him open? What kind of software did you use to zoom in that close to watch it? So I've seen his nose flare a little bit. I've seen his mouth drop like he turned his head and was talking into the ear of that dog.
Yeah, I used 2 or 3 little software packages. Now I use one package called a VidMux, and it's a free video editing. It's like shareware.
Right.
Then it's got a bunch of tools where you can actually crop a video and zoom in on it. And then I use Power. It's called Power Director version 12. I got it here probably a couple years ago. It actually has a really good stabilizer program where it's stabilized now, which really makes things a lot nicer. Beforehand, if you had to stabilize anything, I did it by hand. It was just a pain. But now, you see this one here, just more pictures of that. That's a good one right there. You see that flat nose, and right there's his eye. But that stabilizing software is a godsend as far as that goes, because it really shows when you can stabilize things, it's a lot different. There's the one that was in the tree that it's hard to see. He was in a thick foliage, but that's the one that I actually made eye contact with. And you can kind of see there.
Yeah, because he was like his mouth was closed, and he looked at you, and he kind of like opened it halfway, then he opened it up a little more. But did he have canine teeth?
Yeah, this one's got a more of a elongated nose and looks more like a German Shepherd type, and the other one had a flat nose. Now, I don't know if you know, there was that Paranormal Witness show, And then, and I think also Linda Godfrey. There's a lady, her family. They did a show on it. Her family they had a bunch of these dog men surround their house and terrorize them for a full night. And I friended her on Facebook, and she looked at my video and she said that's the closest that she's seen to the dog men that messed with them. They had about 6 or 7 of them. They were in a remote area up north, I think, up towards New York, and they saw what looked like, they said, a UFO land in the woods, about a half a mile away. And, just a bright light. She said, just a bright light. It could have been a helicopter, but it didn't make any noise. And then she said her and her husband are sitting on the front porch. It's after dark. And she said her husband just looked at her and said, we need to go in the house now. He said, something's wrong. And she said, she said, just as they got into the house and shut the door and looked back out the window, here come these dog men, coming out of the woods at them. And I can't remember. There's probably, she said, half a dozen. And then the story, Linda Godfrey documented the story, but these things were, they walked around the house, jumped on top of the house, they were outside. The guy had all his guns locked up because his wife didn't want all his guns in the house, so he had his guns out in the garage locked up, idiot. And so, anyway, Joseph shouldn't have been listening to his wife when it comes to guns. But anyway, he actually went outside and tried to get to his guns. And of course, they saw him. But the interesting thing was, they had a street light on. They had a motion sensor street light, like an outside light.
Yeah.
And when that light would come on, her husband was hiding behind the car, and there was one literally just a few feet from him. But it wouldn't step out into the light. She said it would not step out in the light. She said it would start to put its paw out, its leg out, whatever you want to call it. And it said when it would, it would just pull back. It would not. He said that they would not step into the light. Isn't that weird?
But didn't he have a flashlight in his hand?
He may have. I can't remember the story. I just remember him talking about, her telling the story where he talking about that they wouldn't come out in that street light.
Huh.
Whenever the light would come on, it was motion sensor, so he'd have to move to set it off. And whenever he'd set it off, they'd back up. And he finally ran to the house. But she said the one with the flat nose, there's 2 or 3 different types. There's ones with flat noses, got a snout with a flat nose. Others that look more canine. There's 3-toed, 4-toed. I've been corresponding with a lady up in Alaska who's got one with a very large. He almost looks like a dinosaur footprint, sort of. It's canine in a way, but you can see the claws coming. Really thick, heavy claws coming out of the 3 toes.
Yeah, I found a dog track in my area that was 6.5 inches wide, about 7.5 inches long. I don't know what it was. It wasn't a bear, but I know, I'm an outdoor. I hunt and fish like 9/10 of my life, like every day I'm in the woods. But this is something I have yet seen before, and it was in this area. I walked in videoing, and I heard squatches, I went in, I seen signs of them and everything. But I started walking through the area, I heard them walk through, because in my area, I don't know about you, but my area, certain time of the year, is just eat up with blueberries in the mountainous regions. Yeah. And they was in this area, that's where I found that footprint. It was in a dry, muddy creek bed. I've never seen one since then, but that was the only one I've seen. And I thought it was dog man.
Yeah. I've found them around that area where I did the videos. One or two out in the trail. Last year around the edge of the lake, I found a 3-toed one. So it's either there's one that run around there that's got 4 toes, and there's one running around there that's got 3 toes. But it's it's pretty good sized print. Weird thing is, one of them, the one that had 4 toes, you could have made the argument maybe it was a very, very large dog. At the back, the pad was elongated. It was almost like it had a heel. And
that's the one that showed where you put your foot next to it.
That's the best one. I found 4 or 5 prints.
That's a big foot.
Yeah, but that was the best one. That thing was as big as my foot. But Yeah, the interesting thing was, you know how a dog walks and kind of drags, and sometimes will even, you know how you can tell a dog's is walking. And this
Yeah,
thing was, I mean, it was bipedal. I mean, there was a right and a left and a right. You know what I'm saying? There were no drags, or there wasn't anything like a dog will, a dog will do when it's walking. So it was, that's what caught my attention when I saw it. Other than size, was it sure didn't look like a dog rabbit.
yeah. But do you still use your game camera in the rear when you go, even when you go hunting nowadays?
Yeah, right now, pretty much I always film behind me. I don't film in front of me because that's a waste of time, in my opinion. So
Yeah, I'm starting to believe that too,
yeah,
to a point.
yeah. I mean, so I'm always. I mean, I basically when I go out, if I've got my camera on my monopod and I'm hiking, I'm just filming behind me. So I usually don't do it each one. And if I go hunting, then I'll go ahead and put the camera on my shoulder and just hunt. Put the camera on my shoulder. I mean, and I just hunt. You know what I'm saying? I don't worry about it. Every now and then I'll, stop and start the camera so the clips aren't so long. And
So sure.
but yeah,
So
if I'm moving around, I've got the camera on my shoulder. That's, pretty much I just use myself as bait. Now that the DNA study's over, I'm not actively going out and beating the bushes for them. If I stay alert and I go hike and enjoy the day. If I get some activity, and here just recently they whooped at me and responded. And they were pretty close. So I got that on video. But I'm ready, but I'm not chasing them through the woods or nothing.
do you kind of like talk to them when you like if you're by yourself? Like with me, I go out and I talk to them, because the ones around here in Virginia, I found out is ancient Cherokee dialect, and so I started speaking some of that, and
Mhm.
I'm getting responses. Do you have that type of situation out your way?
Uh, I talk to them sometimes. I just talk to them in English. I think they understand English just fine. Uh, they've used syllabics with me before. I documented that in my book where they started making the rocks and syllabic symbols. Of course, they speak their language, which is, I've heard that before, which is that, the gibberish, well, samurai chatter.
Yeah.
And, I've heard what sounds like some native, I would call it, Native American. I guess posh sometimes. Sometimes, like, I don't know about you, but if I'm by myself, I'm off in the mountains and I know there's no one around me. It's almost like you hear people mumbling, like just where you can't hear them. You'll hear them mumbling.
Well, I'm
And
in the woods.
you'll look around, you're like, is someone coming? You almost think someone's walking toward you, but no one ever shows up.
Yeah, well, don't tell anybody, but I'm by myself 99% of the time out in the woods, and you won't believe the stuff that I see and hear
Oh,
when I'm by myself. But when someone else comes along,
yeah, that's it.
if I bring a girl, I can hear chattering. If
Yeah,
I bring a guy, nothing.
nothing. Yeah. I usually, like I said, when I brought David in here, we got yelled at by him a couple of times, and he got to see one, but that's been about it. And I don't go by myself much anymore. My wife usually goes with me. But we get a little bit. I've told her she doesn't know if she wants to see one or not, and I said, well, you'll probably get to see one. Well, they won't step out in front of me. They'll catch me with my back turned or something, and one of them's going to, step around a tree just long enough for you to get a good look at him, and then they'll step back in. I don't know if she's ready for that or not, but I know the vocalizations freak her out pretty good.
Doggy problem.
Yeah, the dog's freaking out over here.
Uh, you made a video one time where one come into your yard
Mm-hmm.
and started raiding the dog food.
Yeah.
Now, do you think if they get your scent that they will follow it back to your place, or is that just? I don't know.
That's a good question. That's an unanswered question I can't answer. I'm 22 miles away from one area and 30 miles away from the other. Now, doing a little bit of legwork and research, there's a railroad track that goes straight through that area and comes right into my town. So if you follow the railroad tracks here, you can just jump in, and we got Alcoa aluminum plant that the tracks come into.
Yeah.
I got a theory that they come into Alcoa aluminum's got, I don't know, 200 or 300 acres.
Yeah.
And pretty much Whackenhut guards it. Except for the plant area, it's old growed up farms and old abandoned buildings and so they can come into the Alcoa place and be guarded. They've got streams and there's a walking trail that goes through it. And I think after dark they jump over the fence and start dumpster diving. Because I've had them. They still come to the house. People think I've lost my marbles, but they're coming. I mean, I've got my best footprints here in my backyard. And
I've seen the videos. You got where your buddy let you borrow one of them night cameras, night scopes you put on the thing, and the next door neighbor's yard, porch, was one watching you.
Yeah, and in fact, that year, 2011, we had a little one that just about got caught. My neighbors, everybody got to see it but me. One set of neighbors was having a cookout in the house right behind me. And they had finished their cookout. I think it was in early May. And they were all sitting around the lawn chairs. And one of the wives looked at that tree in my backyard that abuts their backyard. She said, her husband said, "There's somebody in that tree watching us." And he got to looking. And he said, "Yeah." And he's a policeman, so he goes in the house, gets his gun and flashlight, goes over the edge of the fence in the backyard and does the hawk come down policeman thing. And he called it, he said, a wiry teenager, about 6 foot tall in a black hoodie, jumped out 15 feet out of this tree and hit the ground running. And he said he'd never seen anything like it. And then in August of that same year, the lady that lives catty-corner to me has a pool. She would have been, where I got the video of the one in the bushes? She could look at, she was directly behind that neighbor. And her dog started barking, going crazy. And she has a pool, and then she has a deck, and it's screened in. And when she stepped out and turned on the lights, and this is funny because I talked to her because basically she called the cops. What happened was she looked to the left, and it was squatted beside the end of the house, and it took off running. It ran around the pool. It jumped the fence, went through my side yard, and out to the neighborhood. And she called the cops. Well, the cops show up in my driveway and said, "Your neighbors reported a prowler that just ran through your yard." And so, of course, the cops went through the neighborhood, and I told them I didn't see anything or hear anything except the dogs barking, blah, blah, blah. And and then the next morning, this was happening on a Friday night. The next morning, I went over and talked to her, and it was weird because she used the word "it." She kept saying, "Well, it was over there, and it ran around this way, and it jumped the fence, and I never seen anything run that fast." She said it didn't even. She said it stepped over it was a 4 foot dog chain fence. She said stepped over it. And I said, and I looked at her and I said, "It?" And she said, "Well, him." And I think she knew what she saw. She just didn't want to admit it. And then a few weeks later, we were talking again, and she told me, "You've heard." Well, she said, "Well, we got this peeping Tom, right?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, there was a little teenage girl, 16-year-old girl that lives about 3 houses up from me, and this peeping Tom keeps looking in the window at her. And they've called the police 3 or 4 times. He climbs a tree to the second-story window." So this all went on in August of 2011. He almost got caught. I guess the adults finally, peppered him down and got him under control. But they poked I have motion sensor lights.
Yeah.
They don't like those motion sensors whatsoever. That's why game cameras don't work too well. But they poked looked like just a big finger just poked the motion sensor out. Not the light, but the motion sensor. Then the neighbor that had the one run through the pool, she was complaining later that year that when the prowler was around, she had 4 motion sensor lights put up on each corner of her house. She kept complaining, and they kept getting, she said the neighbor boys were shooting them out with their BB guns. And I said, well, what were they doing? Shooting the lights? She said, no, they were shooting the motion sensors. And I didn't have the heart to tell her it was a Bigfoot poking them things out because, you know, I was a boy. You don't, why shoot the motion sensor? That's not going to do anything. You shoot the light bulb so it explodes. Makes a big bang. So, you know, that all happened in 2011. And then just periodically they would, I tried some game cameras, and they pretty much would just thwart them. They just lay them down or stand right in front of them. I mean, I got some. Go ahead.
What did they do with the one that you put in the wood pile?
They grabbed it out. Well, they pulled it out and threw it in the middle of the yard. See, I think they can sense them. I don't know whether they can hear them, smell. I don't think they can smell them. I think they know when the cameras are around, and they just go right to them. And you know, but I tried everything. I had one guy even was going to pay for me to have a system put in, but I didn't want him. But he wanted complete total access, and I didn't want someone else to have access to cameras in my house. I told him, no, let's just don't go there. Plus, if someone spends $1,000 or more, you know, that could, you know, that I don't want someone spending that kind of money to put cameras in my house. But you know, anytime I even tried putting an eyeball camera outside, and I turned it on at night and let it record all night. But it just, you know, they pretty much got the lowdown on you. I did get some vocalizations where they would say stuff with, you know, I don't know why. I think other people found this out. If you use a digital voice recorder, they'll talk for you, or they'll make noises. They don't seem to care about that. You know, that doesn't break the rules. But they still come around. I'd say they come around more in the winter than they do in the summer. But I'd say in the winter they might come around maybe once every couple of weeks. They'll take some dog food, drink some water, and be on their merry way.
All right. The next question is licking the camera.
Yeah. Froze.
I still watch that video. I go frame by frame of frame. All right. You put that camera, what, 9 foot in the tree?
Yeah, it's 9 foot up.
And he had to drop down a little bit to lick the camera.
Yeah.
Now, from what I've seen, he looked like he had Down syndrome. I mean, from the way his facial structures were, or it must have been something sweet on that camera for him to look at.
Yeah, I don't know why he licked the camera. That was, you know, that camera was in a steel casing. You know, a lot of people, I think we talked about that earlier. A lot of people said, "Oh, that was some teenager playing a prank on you." And I said, "Well, number one, he'd have to find my camera out in the middle of nowhere. Number two, I took an old banker's box. I made my own steel cases for those cameras, so I just went out and bought me a metal blade for my circular saw. So you can imagine the edges were pretty rough, and then made the hole where the camera could fit in the hole. So when he licked that camera, he licked the edge of that. That would have just, I don't know how it didn't slice his tongue all to pieces. But I can't see a human being doing that. But he had a smooth face. When he first raises his head up, the hair is kind of hanging down, and then of course when he raises up, but he just now that whole lick sequence takes place in less than one frame. So it's 30 frames. It's 30 frames a it's 30 frames a second, and he licks it in less than a second. So I don't know of any human being that can move that fast either. That was a fast lick.
Did you find any tracks right there at the camera?
Oh yeah, that was in the area where I got hair for the DNA study. I was finding, that's why I put the cameras in that area. I actually put up a camera fence. Basically, it was a narrow area, and I started finding tracks in that area. I found several tracks, and I actually made a plea. I called a bunch of people and said, "Look, send me cameras. I've got a place that's really hot." Of course, no one would send me cameras, so I bought what I could afford, which were the cheap, $7,500 cameras. I bought 6 of them, and I made a fence. So I just put a camera watching the camera, watching the camera, watching the camera, and that's how I got some of that footage. Of course, now that's when I started. I didn't realize back then. I thought maybe they were bipedal apes or just some sort of missing link that weren't real smart. I learned real fast. That was wrong. They would disable the cameras. They put leaves in front of the cameras. They knew what they were. They knew what they were for. They'd mess with them. I got some decent footage, but it's kind of like whenever you put a camera up, if they've not seen them before, they'll mess with it, figure out what it is, and then either disable it or just avoid it. That's pretty much what I found.
You did a video a few years back where you had a camera. I think it was a checkerboard or something, or checkers or something like that. It was I got there for a long time. I think it was. Might have been somewhere else. I don't know.
I didn't do the checkerboard. I did the rocks, but I didn't do checkerboards.
Rocks with the different colored beads, whatever.
Yeah, I tried that. Yeah, I did that. They move the rocks all kinds of different ways, but they never would. They always, I talk about these rules. They seem to have a set of rules they play by. And, like number one, never show your whole face. You're going to look at a human being, only use one eye. You don't have anything to hide behind, put a leaf in front of your face or a limb. You don't talk to a human being. They got all kinds of these little rules. If you're going to, it's kind of like taking food. I noticed at my house they wouldn't take, out in the field they would take candy bars. But when I came to the house, I put candy bars out in fruit. They wouldn't do it. They'd take the dog food. They wouldn't take the candy bars. It's too overt. If they came to my house and took the candy bar, I'd know. It's kind of funny to me because I already know that they're coming, and I know that they know I know. But it's like, still, they're not going to do it. It's like, well, we can't break this rule. The rule says we can't do this. Now, we can take the dog food because it's kind of hard to prove that we did it. Other than, you could put a line. I'd put a line on the inside of the tub with a pencil, and the next day I'd go back out, and the lid would be on it, but it'd be down 3 inches. They'd smoothed it back out flat. But, what I'm saying, that was acceptable because they almost like, well, we know you can't prove that. But if you leave us a whole bunch of candy bars and we take all of them, everybody's going to know we took them. So we're not going to do that. And the same thing with the rocks. Sometimes they would overtly move them into patterns. Lots of times I'd have to watch them. I'd go out and I'd set the rocks up and I'd take a picture of the rocks, video. And then when I would go back the next time, the same rocks may be in the same order, but 2 of the rocks may be turned 90 degrees to the left. Something like that, or turned upside down. They do stuff like that. They do that crazy stuff. And I know if a raccoon or a possum messed with them, number one, he's going to obliterate it. Number two, a raccoon's going to take it. Raccoon, he's a little kleptomaniac. There wouldn't be any rocks there. They just take them all and be gone. So,
have you ever found, about 2 weeks ago we had a 3-day rain nonstop. But the day before it rained, I found in the creek. There was a stick going up on a rock, and then it was 3 different sized pebbles, like a little stairway up to another rock. On the other end of it, they had 2 little sticks like going across a ravine, and they took little rocks, took four rocks probably about that big around, and made like a little square, and they did like build a little cabin. Have you ever seen something like that?
I've never seen anything like that. Now, I've seen them stack rocks, do the rock stacking.
Yeah. But here's the funny part. I come back a couple of days later, on the side, on that little structure that they built, a little thing they built, it's in my video, there's no rocks coming out, little pebbles coming out like a little walkway. There was none of that, but when I went back, there was like a little teeny walkway going up to the front door, and over behind it, they laid 3 pebbles, like 1, 2, 3.
Interesting.
Now, someone told me on their theory that it could be that it's like they're copying where they live at. They're going to where they live at.
Yeah.
Have you ever find any stuff? You ever seen anything similar to it?
Well, one time in my backyard, they did something really funny. And then, I guess this happened in 2011, 12. I had cleaned up the backyard, and I don't know if you've ever, I have a wood stove, and if you've ever used fence post, you drive your fence post in the ground, you put your rick in between the fence posts.
Yeah.
Well, this was in the spring, and I'd used up this rick, and the ground was still kind of hard. So I cleaned everything up, put it under the tarp that was covering the wood, and I had 2 fence posts sitting over here, and I thought, well, when it rains a little bit, I can pull them out of the ground, I'll pull them out of the ground. And this is like on a Friday night. Well, on Sunday morning, my wife looks out the window and said, "Did you clean up the backyard?" And I said, "Yeah, I cleaned up the backyard." She said, "Well, somebody's made a mess out there." Well, I go out there, and one of those poles, and I mean, I drove it pretty far down the ground, had been pulled up out of the ground. And then another pole had been taken out from under the tarp. And there was an X on it. And then there was an old birdhouse I put up under the tarp, and it was sitting there. And then they had laid sticks in the ground with an arrow pointing in one direction. And I just started thinking about that. I said, what are they doing? I was pretty convinced the Bigfoot had done it, but I couldn't figure out what they were doing. And then I said, hang on a second. I went and got my compass. And when I went out there with my compass, the cross was perfect, northeast, southwest. Then the arrow was pointing directly south to their area, where they come. So and then they had the birdhouse. So I figured that they, in their own way, saying, this is where we're from. This is the group that's coming to visit you.
Because
that's about as close as I can come to what you were talking about.
I found a stick, a little kind of thing was shoved in the ground, and it had like 4 X's on top of each other, and it had one long one going in one direction. I found 2 of them. I followed the first one, took me to a spring that was in the ground up on the mountain, because I made a straight beeline. The second one, I went to the birthing bed area.
Oh.
I found, and people ask me why I don't take video of it, because I don't want people to come in and start trashing my area.
Yeah.
So what it was like 3 or 4 beds, so-called beds. It was like 8 foot wide by 12, 13 foot long. They had sticks lined all the way around it and deprecated all the way around it. And the only thing I can think of is that's when they give birth, the smell of the feces will scare the baby and make it stay next to its mom.
Yeah.
Because I found after birth and blood inside them.
That's wild.
But I've never taken any photographs or any video of that area. Because the reason is, I don't want people coming in, tearing my area up to look for Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Since I live off the Blue Ridge Parkway, they stay at the George Washington National Forest.
Yeah.
I've got over 130,000 acres, and they migrate up and down that area. But when I found those 2 structures, they took me to 2 different places. And a lot of the I do have tree bends, or snaps as directional. But I've never really followed them all the way. So I can't say, I don't know exactly where they're going. It might be where they're going or where they've just come from.
Yeah.
But the two X things, I found out what they were for.
Yeah.
Kind of blew my cookie,
Yeah. They're real smart. I mean, have you ever found just a single pristine footprint and always wondered why in the world they just left one footprint? You ever find that?
That bugged the crap out of them.
Well,
what did they do? Jump up on
my daughter was dating a guy that was was a medic. He was a corpsman, in the Navy, and they attached him to a SEAL unit.
Right.
And he was, and I was, and I was telling him about that. I said, one of the things that's very interesting is like you'll be going along and you'll find one pristine footprint, pristine. And you're thinking, well, they're not that stupid, Why did they just leave one footprint? And he says, well, that's interesting because he said, what we'll do, and he said, it changes with every operation, but he said, let's say we're in behind enemy lines.
Right.
And and he said, when we're in an operation, we don't build shelters or anything. We use in other words, we'll use a blowdown and we'll sleep up under the blowdown. We won't disturb anything. We try to be as stealthy as possible. But he said, what we'll do, we'll set up a code. And he said, basically, let's say we're going along a trail, and one person will take their boot, put the boot print down in a certain direction, and then we might predetermine that wherever you find the boot trail, go 10 more feet into the left, and then or go past. If you see the boot mark in the trail, go past it for 10 minutes, wait 10 minutes, then come back. That tells us it's all clear, and then come in. So he was surmising that they were probably using that as some sort of signal, directional signal, or even a marker, this is who I am, like a signature to an area. But that's what he thought. And I thought that was a pretty good idea because, as we're walking a trail, if you don't know, a pile of rocks could be a pile of rocks, a couple of sticks laying in an X. Well, that could have fallen. They're pretty, they're pretty much, they do stuff like that. I think they do that quite a bit because and also may be a signature because I used to get more than once here at the house, I've got the single pristine footprint, and that's it. Just one. Almost like a signature saying, I'm John, the big one, or whatever. So.
Oh, that's the one that stopped right there and reached over the rail.
Yeah.
Grabbed dog food.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some big prints. I've got one of them. I just had the front part of the foot. He just left. It was dusty. It looks like he wheeled on his foot, and turned, and I got the big toe all the way through the little toe, and that's 11 inches wide. So the foot pad's 11 inches. I don't know how long the foot would have been. Probably 22, 23.
So you say it's about what, 10 and a half, 11 feet maybe?
Yeah, maybe even taller, 12.
Yeah, I got 11 footer here.
And then I found a 17-inch footprint, and then I found 11-inch footprint here at the house. And then an infant one, little one. They put him up on.
How strong do you think they are?
God, I could imagine strong. Who knows? I don't have a clue. I mean, I've heard stories of them breaking chains, heavy chains, and I wouldn't have an idea. I wouldn't want to find out how strong they are.
I seen a video. It was a family in Canada that the guys got a squatch punching. I think it was a white maple. These trees were tall. It was just in his backyard, and he zoomed it. He zoomed it and got it, and you could see him punch a tree and knock it over.
Mm. Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with him.
I'll have to send you that video.
Yeah, I know a guy in Texas I talked to in Texas that they were stealing his horse feed.
Yeah.
He made the mistake of shutting the barn door and locking it, and they ripped the barn door off and threw it out in the middle of the pasture. So
I guess they're pretty determined on whatever they want.
Oh yeah. If they want something bad enough, they'll get it.
Yeah, because I got a juvie, a 3.5 foot high juvie. When I was panning from my right to my left, because what I did, I had set out 2 freshly baked cinnamon buns. I had just got from the store and they were still steaming. I was taking one and eating it, and like, oh, yummy, yummy, and all this stuff, you know. And before I went down the bottom of the hill, I took my camera and I was panning from right to left. And when I got to point stop, this little one steps right out from behind the tree, about a second, and then steps back. But I was over zoomed on it. But when I went down the bottom of the ridge, this is a funny thing. I'm sitting there at the bottom of the ridge, about 80 yards away from where I had left the cinnamon buns at. To get me away from that area, they took and snapped a limb back about 40 yards, 50 yards back further, expecting me to go that way. I've learned to, when they try to distract you, I ignore it.
Yeah.
You can hear them scurrying up top of the hill. You can hear them chattering. You can hear them going to the cinnamon buns. When I got back, I waited about half an hour, you know, and I went back up there, and they had snatched everything, you know. You can see the little footprints all over the place, but they took and made a little square and put an X in it, and then took 3 sticks and made a little cup and put a pine cone in it. I guess they left them for a gift for me for that, something like that. But they're getting closer and closer, so I'm assuming it might be in your area too. I'm assuming that the more you do something they get, and the less scared they are of you.
Yeah.
Is that how?
I guess. I mean,
how it is down your way?
Yeah. I mean, they like I said, they have their rules, and they don't break them very often. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever get real close to me or not. Of course, I don't go alone like you do, so I don't put myself out there like I used to, where they can do that sort of thing. I mean, I've had reports. I mean, I've dealt with some women before that have them, you know, around their homes and stuff like that. But they see them quite often. But yeah, they get, you just have to be careful. I've had some horror stories related to me of people started feeding them and got them used to being fed, and then when they had to stop, whether they couldn't afford it anymore or whatever, they get, they don't, you got something that's 800 pounds and 10 foot tall, and he don't get told no, and so they can get pretty violent when you start feeding them. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I've had them do the same thing you talk about, breaking sticks and stuff. Oh yeah, whenever one's being really loud in front of me, I always turn around and look behind me, because that means that's where the action's at. They're always trying to distract you.
Yeah, I mean, I often got to the point where I hear all sorts of stuff around me.
Yeah.
And I'll just, like, if I go into the area and I see them, that they're hiding, and I'm going this way, I'll say, see you later, have a nice day, and I'll walk right on out.
Yeah.
I know they're there, but I act like I don't know they're there.
Yeah, no, I haven't experienced that. I mean, I have them, the one, usually in the areas you go in, my research area, they have one that's, I always call it a scout. And he watches, basically when you pull your truck up, he's sitting there watching you. And then as you walk the area, he walks with you. And when I first started going, they would try to be real stealthy, and you wouldn't even hardly ever hear him. But as he got more used to me and got kind of over it, he'd walk just like I'd be walking. And I'd hear something off to my right or left, usually downwind, about 100 yards behind me, and just a classic trailing me. But you'd hear him, and they wouldn't even try to, he wouldn't even try to hide the fact he was walking. He just bipedally when I'd stop, they'd stop. Now I have noticed one thing though. I used to do a lot. Like if I was moving, I went in one time and I was going hunting and I was kind of running late, so I was walking pretty fast. And then the one that was assigned I guess to trail me was trying to keep up, and he was having to go through some nasty briars and stuff. And he all of a sudden pebbles started flying in front of him. In other words, he started throwing rocks, and it got a little bit bigger because I was in a hurry, so I just kept running. I wasn't running, but I was walking pretty fast. And it's almost like almost like, slow down, damn it! My job is to follow you. You're going to take that
same thing.
Yeah, these briars hurt. I can't come out the trail and follow you. I got to run through these damn woods. And so that's kind of the, you know, and I finally, on that one deal, I finally stopped and I looked. I said, look, I'm going right down here to hunt. And I said, I got to get there before daylight. So if you want to come, come on. But that's where I'm going. I ain't going nowhere else. And that was it. He didn't throw no more pebbles. And that was also the morning that, well, he got me back. That was the morning I think I told you. What happened was once I got in my stand, he went upwind to me, little asshole, excuse my French, and sat up there. And of course, all morning I could smell him. All morning I could smell him. And of course, if I could smell him, you know, the deer could.
Yeah.
And of course, he run my hunt. And I think he knew he did. But
Yeah, they do the same thing.
he just sit upwind of me. Of course, I came down early and left because you could smell him, that old, you know, that old sick, sweet, wet dog, you know, sprayed by skunk smell.
Yeah.
And if I could, you know, and it was going downwind right across the trail I was watching, so there wasn't no deer, there wasn't nothing moving that morning. I knew it was him, but he kind of got me back on that one. But yeah, they do stuff like that. I mean, they let you know when they're not happy with you.
Yeah. Years that you've been out here doing this, with your front camera in front of you, camera behind you, what is the main thing that they've taught you when you go out?
As far as about them,
What
I
have
mean,
they taught you? You know, it makes you like, what if they like leaving signs, you know, like throwing rocks at you and let them know they're, you know, just basically like a teacher. If they do stuff for a purpose, they're teaching you something
yeah,
about them.
yeah.
What's one thing you've learned about
Well, I think they've tried to teach me that they're not stupid. They know they've tried to teach me that they're not dumb, stupid. They're very intelligent. They can, I mean, they consider themselves on par with us, if not smarter. Uh, I think I don't know if you've ever seen that video I put out where I got zapped. Uh, I was purposely trying to figure out what was going on with them, and I was bad mouthing them, and one of them got PO'd,
it? I
and
remember that.
and that told me all I needed to know. They taught me all I needed to know right then. That means he had intellect, emotion, and will, and he understood
Did your
English.
buddy get
Because
did your buddy get zapped too, or just you?
it was interesting. He zapped me, but my buddy beside me said he felt like I heard a whoosh. And it addled me to the point where I almost went down. I mean, it felt like I grabbed a barbed wire fence, electric barbed wire fence, and it went up my right arm, across my chest, and out my left arm. And I almost
Yeah,
fell.
I've
And
had them make made me sick. Um, I've been like I'll be sitting there doing something like setting up a bait area, and all of a sudden it's just I feel like I'm getting ready to misery. I feel like someone was crushing my head.
yeah,
I walked in this one area, and the left side of my head felt like something was doing this right here.
yeah,
But when I started backing out, then it felt like 1,000 volts going through my body. And people, um, people ask me, what's that mean? My only thing I can think of is you're getting too close to the juveniles, or they just don't like you.
yeah,
That's the only thing I can think of.
yeah. Well, this zapping was in response to me doing a bad mouthing. But I was doing it on purpose. I mean, I didn't mean it. I had even told my friend Greg Gredick, I said, I'm going to try a little experiment here as we walk out. Because I'd taken him in. He's a good guy. And he does research up near Cosby. And yeah, he has him around him up there. But I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to find out whether they can understand English or not. Let's see if they can. See if they do anything. And I mean, I was giving them down the road. You know, idiots. You know, they're just. You know, I was talking all kinds of bad stuff about them. You know, directly at them. And, you know, they just nailed me. And, you know, that told me all I needed to know. You know, after that, I didn't, funny thing was after that, I went back in about a month later and they were doing the stomping the ground, breaking sticks, and they did a couple of whoops. And I just looked in the woods and I said, boys, I ain't biting no more. I said this. I said if you want to do this for Matt and them other idiot finding Bigfoot idiots, I said that's fine. I said save it for the tourists. But I said I ain't buying it, and they quit. And really they haven't done much of it. That whooping that I heard here, a couple of weeks ago. I don't think they were whooping about me. They were whooping about some people coming down the trail. But they pretty much quit all that stuff. I told them, I said I ain't buying it. I said you're not that stupid. I said, I know better. I said that's just a show you're putting on for whatever reason. And I said, I ain't buying it. They quit.
Yeah, because only time I really ever hear from the ones my range, I'm very vocal, but at 5:30 in the morning going bow hunting, I get out the Jeep and walk around it. Don't hear a sound. Open up the door, grab my crossbow. Don't hear a sound. But the minute I lean down and cock that thing, they go whoop, 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 whoop. It's like a herd of elephants running through the woods. And then it's dead quiet.
Yeah.
They always do that to me when I'm going hunting, bow hunting.
Yeah.
Now, if we're going there squirrel hunting with a rifle, they don't do it.
Yeah.
They just follow me.
Yeah.
Because I'm shooting squirrels out of a tree. They're going like, why am I shooting rats out of a tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that, But rifle season, they're starting to move out and everything. But anyway, it's about time to call. So I got one other question for you, and that question is, what is your advice for the for our viewers to know on the process of using the game camera behind you?
Well, you want to get a small light camera that has a good battery life. The new GoPros they got out. If you got the money, that's the way I'd go. I've already bought my cameras, but those little GoPros, you can buy the harness and everything. You can strap it to the center of your back and let it shoot about back. But, that'd be my advice. If you can afford a GoPro, get a GoPro. If you can't, you're like me and you've already got like a handy cam. It's more difficult to get you a little rig or some foam. I got some elastic banding and stuff to hold it there. But, my thing is, remember, they watch your eyes. And like I told you before, that in my opinion, they've got these rules. And I think rule number one is never let you see them. And I think rule number two is don't get photographed. But rule number one comes first. And so even if you got the camera going backwards, you're still more worried about where you're looking than where that camera's pointing.
Yeah. Well, that picture I sent you the other day of the one in the V of the tree.
Yeah.
That's the second time I've got them looking dead at me. Got the face in there too.
Yeah.
I don't know if they realized that I knew it, but I got them on, and everything.
Yeah, but I think I encourage everybody to use some sort of back trail camera. Or if you don't have a rig, get a monopod and film behind you, because that's where they're at. They're peekers. I call them sneaking peekers.
Yeah.
And there's a curiosity they have. It just drives them crazy. And they'll look out at you after you walk by them, a lot. Or but they'll wait till you walk by first.
Uh-huh.
So and I'm hoping one day to catch one jumping across the trail on me. I don't know. They're pretty smart. They're not. They know what'll happen if they do that, and I'll get them on camera. But they will, from time to time, sometimes you can get a full face, sometimes a half face, but they're back there. I'm convinced pretty good population, especially in the Smokies and some of these other places, some of these main trails, they're watching them all the time. We're entertainment. We're TV. They're constantly watching. They're watching those trails. That's what they do. Plus, they're just like that. They're smart. They want to know who's coming in the area and where they're going. But that like I said, those GoPros are the way to go if you can afford them.
Okay,
Those
cool.
things are slick.
Okay, cool. So if anybody wants to watch your videos, what's the link that they can go to check out your videos and research and everything?
Let's see. They could go. I've got a blog and a video. Of course, they can find me on YouTube. Just if you just type in Scott Carpenter, you know, in the search, it'll pull up my videos. And then I've got my blog is called the Bigfoot Field Journal. You just go to Google and put in the Bigfoot Field Journal. It should come up. That's my blog. And you can see I got my videos and all my research there at my blog, and then of course on my YouTube channel. It's under my name.
Okay. That sounds good. Carl, you got anything you want to say before we go off there?
No, just thank you. I've learned a few things tonight. You've helped me thin out the bush.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Fred Caney, and if you want any information on me, go on my YouTube channel. It's Freddy59100. It's all one word. That's my YouTube channel, and I wish I had a blog, but I don't and everything. Okay, folks, that's the end of the show, and we'll catch you on the rebound.